A warm welcome to our parents, friends, and especially to our grandparents who are joining us today for Class 4's presentation of the Revolutionary Voices. At the core of the Marymount mission is our commitment to empower each girl to find her own voice so she can challenge, shape, and change the world. Our speech and drama program is showcased in our annual cross-curricular presentations. And yes, even in this unique year, our Class 4 girls have been able to explore revolutionary voices during their history, language arts, music, visual arts, and drama classes. Each student researched her own character, learning about important men and women who were heroes of the Revolutionary era and made great contributions to the American history. Students wrote their own unique monologues from the character's perspective based on historical fact and enhanced by dramatic presentation. You will get a chance to see the visual and performing arts program in action through their beautiful character self-portraits, song, dance, and strong public speaking skills. Revolutionary Voices is the second of 6 interdisciplinary units during their years in the lower middle and the upper middle school. It is designed to keep our students' voices strong so they can communicate effectively with confidence and joy. I am so proud of each and every one of our girls and their excellent work. So sit back and relax. Let the show begin.
Never again will you get the best of me. Never again will you take away my freedom. And we won't forget the day we fought for the right for our own free country. Never again will justice be banned. Never again will I be bullied. And never again will I doubt it when my captain says I'm a patriot. Never again will we live behind bars. Never again will we know who we are. Revolting voices leaning in, revolting times. We sing revolting songs, you sing revolting rhymes. We'll be revolting voices till our revolting's done. And we'll have time revolting, we're revolting. We will become a screaming riot. If you tax our tea, we won't buy it. Never again will we be ignored. We'll find out where the tea is stored, and then we'll throw it overboard. It's not insulting, we're revolting. So we gotta stay inside the line. If we disobey at the same time, there's nothing that King George can do. He can take his army and SHU. Do you think we'll push us too far? There's no going back now. We are EVOTIN. Come on! USING, USING. Well, we are EVOTING. It is over for you. We are revolting. We are revolting voices, in revolting times. We sing revolting songs, you sing revolting rhymes. We'll be revolting voices till our revolting's done, and we'll have to have revolting, we're revolting. We are revolting voices, in revolting times. We sing revolting songs, you sing revolting rhymes. We'll be revolting voices till our revolting's done, and we'll have to have revolting, we're revolting. Am I late? Never mind, I'm here now. I'm so tired from fighting British soldiers. Oh, I'm sorry, I should probably introduce myself. I'm George Washington. Yes, the George Washington, who helped America to gain its independence and then became the first president of the United States of America. I was recognized for my strong leadership skills and was the commander-in-chief during the Revolutionary War. One of the most important battles that I led during the Revolutionary War was the Battle of Yorktown. That is the story I'll be telling you today. The Battle of Yorktown was a pivotal battle in our fight for independence. Let me share with you some of the background. Before the Battle of Yorktown, the
The American Army was struggling and very, very tired. I was afraid to continue to lose more soldiers once their enlistment was over. But then there was a sudden turnaround. In 1781, I had patriots spying on the British to gain information, which was how I knew that thousands of tired British soldiers were camped in Yorktown, Virginia. It felt like the perfect moment to attack. However, I was far from Virginia, and I needed more soldiers to win the battle, but we could not miss out on this opportunity to attack. To my surprise, the French sent ships bringing thousands of French soldiers to help us. The battle took 3 long weeks, but with the help of the French, we were able to beat the British. Then General Cornwallis surrendered. I was tired but so relieved. Through my leadership, courage, and bravery, I led the American Army to victory. Although gruesome with the loss of many soldiers, the Battle of Yorktown was one of the most important victories for the American people. It marked the end of the last major battle of the war and the start of America's independence. During the next 2 years, the Continental Army won 2 more battles, which led to England and America signing a peace treaty. The Declaration of Independence was later drafted by Thomas Jefferson, declaring America's independence from Britain and stating our new government. America's government would have no king but a president. Why don't you take a wild guess as to who they picked? Me, George Washington. I hope you enjoyed hearing about the Battle of Yorktown. As a loyal and honest leader, I leave you with this. Observe good faith and justice toward all nations. Cultivate peace and harmony with all. Farewell, I'm off to visit Washington, D.C., which was named after me. Then I'm going to the Spy Museum. Long live American independence!
Hello, my name is Sybil Lightington. I'm 16 years old, and I'm the eldest out of 8 brothers and sisters. As a girl living during the Revolutionary War, I was expected to help my mother around the house with supper and taking care of my siblings. My father was a colonel in the war and was in charge of a big army. One night, a messenger came to my house and delivered news that would give me an opportunity to help America win the war. This is my story if you listen closely. The messenger told my father that 2,000 redcoats were attacking Danbury, Connecticut. My father needed to stay home to give orders to the soldiers as they arrived to help, but there was no one to warn the other patriots that the redcoats had attacked. I volunteered to do the midnight ride. My family knew that I was the best rider there, plus I knew where all of my father's soldiers lived. Before I left, Mother warned me that there would be outlaws or redcoats, but I told Mother not to worry because I am brave. I rode Star, my horse, all night long, and I was scared, damp, and cold. Since there were a lot of places to go, I knocked on one door, then that person would spread the news to the others in the area. This was a difficult journey, and I didn't feel as ready as I sounded. I was nervous that I wouldn't finish the job, and it was indeed a dangerous journey. Every time I heard a deer and owl, I would make Star go faster because I was scared to run into a redcoat. I did run into 3 outlaws, but I was able to get away before they saw me. After a long night, I finally made it home safely to my family. Although hard, it was worth it. I am Sybil Ludington, and I took the midnight ride to the militia. Some people think that without my bravery, the redcoats would have marched to Peaksville. There they would have attacked George Washington's army, and that would have changed the whole story of the American Revolution and the history of the United States. Thank you for listening to my story. Now I must go off and feed Star and get my siblings ready for their nap. Long live American independence.
She laid some taxes on her darling son, and would have laid another act thereon. Why weeps St. Marcus, why weeps my child? This spake Bertina, thus benign and mild. Oh, sorry, I was just finishing up some poetry. Let me introduce myself. My name is Phyllis Wheatley. Let me tell you a little bit about my contributions to literature during the American Revolution. I wasn't born an enslaved person, but I became one at only 7 years old, when I was kidnapped from my mother and my beautiful home in Africa to be brought to America. The family who I worked for, the Wheatleys, named me after the boat that brought me, called the Phyllis. Mrs. Susanna Wheatley recognized my talents and thought that I needed to be educated. She taught me how to read and write. I loved to write poetry, especially about my home country and the war. I became a very talented and famous female poet and was invited to Buckingham Palace in England at one point. In fact, at only 20 years old, I was the first African-American woman ever to publish a book of poetry.
Amanda Gorman is following my footsteps. After all, we are alike, as I also read my poems at political events. I was going to England to show my work to the publishers and the people of England. This is the second time I was out on sea, and it was a very different experience from my first trip to America as an enslaved person. I traveled on a boat with my own private room. When I arrived in England, I was so excited. People wanted to hear my poetry, even King George. Before I got the chance to read my poetry to King George, I was told that Mrs. Susanna Wheatley was sick. In the end, there was no time to meet the king, as I needed to be by Mrs. Wheatley's side. I then left England to go to Boston. I learned of George Washington's appointment with the Continental Congress to take command of the American forces in Massachusetts. In response to the news, I wrote a poem called To His Excellency George Washington and sent it to Washington. When he replied to my poem, Washington addressed the letter to Miss Phyllis, which was believed to be the first time Washington addressed an African-American woman as Miss. What an honor. During my time in the American Revolution, I was smart and brave enough to use my voice through my talents of writing poetry while enslaved. My poems were even published in Great Britain during the King George's reign. I served as a role model to all people who wanted equal rights and showed the importance of education for all. I hope you enjoyed my speech. Long live America.
Hello, everyone. I am Thomas Jefferson. Yeah, the guy who wears bedroom slippers all the time. Besides that, I helped write the Declaration of Independence, which I will tell you more about soon. I was also the third president of the United States. Politics weren't my only interests, though. I loved to read, play the violin, and invent new machines. I also built my own home and named it Monticello. I filled it with family, friends, books, and music. I grew a big garden and filled it with different types of plants and flowers. When I was 9, I went to boarding school. Young age, I know. There I learned Latin, Greek, and French. I would like to share with you that I can be very quiet sometimes when speaking in public. At least, that's what the fellow people say. Here is my story. Picture this. It's June 17th, 1776. Today, I'm drafting the Declaration of Independence, along with the Committee of Five. John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Robert Livingston, and Roger Sherman. Many people hate sitting at their desk and writing for hours, but I love it. My ultimate goal of the Declaration of Independence is to spread unity among Americans. I wanted to include the removal of slavery in the document. Now, you may be thinking, if I am against slavery, then why do I have slaves of my own? This is a tough question that has stumped many people. Fast forward. It took me 2 full weeks to write the Declaration of Independence, and that's short for time back in the day. Writing this extremely important document, you hear that, King George? It definitely does not make him very happy. Congress made many edits and revisions to the document before it was accepted. I knew that this would show that we Americans do not want to be ruled by the British. After a few years, we finally won our independence. Although I retired at the age of 50, I was always notified when there was important news. I'm a pretty big deal, you could say. Overall, I think I made some positive changes to benefit America. After my retirement, I was able to go home to Virginia to Monticello. I like to spend my free time inventing new machines, studying nature and geography. Now, I should get back to looking for some new bedroom slippers. Long live America!
I'm so tired from carrying pictures from the spring. Oh, didn't see you there, fellow patriots. My name is Molly Pitcher. Well, my real name is Mary Ludwig Hayes. People call me Molly Pitcher because at the Battle of Monmouth, I filled up pitchers in water and fed it to the soldiers. I was a patriot. I fired against the British in the battle. And, well, long story. Here goes. On a lovely autumn day, on October 13th, 1754, in Trenton, New Jersey, I, Mary Ludwig Hayes, was born. I moved to Carlisle, Pennsylvania in 1768, where I met my future husband, William Hayes. I was only 14 years old when I met him. In 1777, we decided to marry, and soon after, William joined the Continental Army. We then traveled to a camp in Valley Forge. It was so hard to see so many soldiers dying due to hunger and disease. I desperately wanted to help them, but did not know how. In February 1778, the Continental Army received a message from France that stated that they wanted to join the army. Also, a kind German officer offered to train the soldiers. On June 28, 1778, the Battle of Monmouth had begun. Suddenly, during the raging combat, William fell to the ground and complained about the heat. In that moment, I felt worried and scared. I quickly grabbed a pitcher and ran to the spring. As soon as I was about to give William the water, many other soldiers fell too. I ended up taking multiple trips to the spring, bringing water to all the brave men fighting for our freedom. Before I knew it, the army was calling out, "Molly Pitcher!" depending on me to save them. The heat was now getting to me as well, so I sat on the ground to rest. When out of the corner of my eye, I saw William collapse again, leaving no man to fire his cannon. I rushed over and, without even thinking, loaded the cannon. A cannonball flew through the bottom of my skirt, causing my petticoat to rip. But thank goodness I was not injured. Once I finished, I fired against the British, even though I was afraid to do so. At the end of the day, we had won. The next morning, an officer took me to see General Washington. He had requested to meet the woman who had been so brave in battle. He gave me gold as a reward for my courage. After the battle, William was safe and well. That day I felt powerful, brave, and strong. I could not believe I was the only woman on the battlefield that day. My pitcher and I saved so many lives. This made me feel proud. Farewell, fellow patriots. I'm off to fill up my pitcher at the spring. God bless America!
Hello, everyone. I'm Deborah Sampson, otherwise known as Robert Shirtliff, and I'm a woman. I'm known as Robert because I fought in the war as a man, and nobody knew until Dr. Binney wrote a letter to General Patterson. Let me tell you my story. I was a servant. For 10 long years, I had to work hard. When I finally turned 18, I was free. It was my first winter of freedom, and that summer I became a school teacher, but it wasn't enough of an adventure for me. I was in no rush to get married. All I wanted was a great adventure. I wanted to travel to new places and meet new people. If a poor man wanted to travel and have adventures, he would join the army. So I thought, why can't I join the army? Why not dress as a man and be a soldier? On May 20th, 1782, I joined the army with the name Robert Shirtliff. A few weeks later, I was shot in the leg and the neck. Shortly after, somebody got me to the hospital. After my injury healed, every step I took hurt. One of my fellow soldiers, Richard Snow, was also sick, so I took him to a nearby farmhouse to recover, but he died soon after. The man who owned the farmhouse, Van Tassel, was a friend of the Tories and didn't like us. He wouldn't give us food, so his daughter snuck food upstairs to us. When I finally left the farmhouse, General Patterson heard of what I did, and I became his personal orderly. I was given a fine feather bed and a good horse. It was way better than sleeping on the cold, damp ground. In June, I was sent on a mission to Philadelphia. Unfortunately, a terrible fever was spreading. I caught that fever, and one day I fainted and was put in a hospital. When I came to, people thought I was dead. It took all of my strength to tell the nurse I was alive. By the time Dr. Binney arrived, I was back in a coma. By that time, he had discovered that I was, in fact, a woman. He never told a single soul, including me. When I was strong enough to return, Dr. Binney gave me a letter for General Patterson. An hour after I gave General Patterson the letter, he asked me, "Is it really true?" How was I supposed to respond to his reaction? After a long pause, I replied, "Yes, I am Deborah Sampson." Then I thought of a plan. I said, "Please, sir, if you will get a dress for me, the fanciest dress you can find, you will see what Deborah Sampson actually looks like." The next time he saw me, I was wearing a lovely pink gown. After that, I was discharged from the army on October 25th, 1783. Because of my courage and bravery when fighting in the army disguised as a man, I helped America come closer to winning the war. My story became so famous, I was asked to give speeches around the country to talk about my experiences in the army. Thank you for your time. I now have to go give yet another speech in Boston. Farewell. Why are there so many people looking at me? Oh, right, this is the speech I have to make. Before I begin, let me just say, I know I might seem forgetful, but that's because it's been 237 years since I became a free man. Let me formally introduce myself. My name is James Lafayette. You might know my name from General Lafayette, but I'll explain later why we have the same name. I was enslaved by William Armstead and then became a spy working as a double agent between the British and the Americans. I heard that if you fought in the war, you could be freed, but I was serving as a spy, and because of that, I was not set free. Let me tell you the story. One day, General Lafayette of the American Army saw me in his camp, and he asked me to spy on the British for him. Once I started my mission, I was dressed up as a runaway, and Cornwallis Benedict Arnold didn't suspect anything of me. The British Army trusted me and would talk about their plans and maps of attack while I was around. They were foolish. Since I was in disguise, they asked me to spy on the American Army, which they thought was a brilliant idea. I accepted, but I continued to tell General Lafayette everything about the British and their plans. As an American patriot, I was loyal to Lafayette, not to General Cornwallis and Benedict Arnold. I continued to spy until the Americans won the war. I was then at the American camp where Cornwallis paid a visit to General Lafayette. While he was at the American camp, Cornwallis spotted me. I was caught, but it did not matter since we won. As an American spy, General Lafayette knew the plans of the British during the war. Without me, we might have lost the Revolutionary War. When it was over, I still was not freed, but I was very proud of myself. We, the Patriots, had won the war. When Lafayette found out about my circumstances, he wrote me a handwritten certificate, which gave me my freedom. In tribute to General Lafayette, I changed my last name to Lafayette. I'm finally free. I spent remaining years on my farm, and I died August 9th, 1830, at 82 years old. I could say I lived a pretty good life. Wait, if I died, then how am I here? I guess it's just my ghost. I hope I didn't frighten you. Have a nice day. I'm off to my farm to visit everything and make sure my crops are still alive and doing well. I don't know if I trust the new owner taking care of my land quite yet. Goodbye.
Oh, hello, I'm James Horton. Today I'll be telling you about the role I played during the American Revolution and the reason I'm holding these marbles in my hand. We will get to that later. First, let me tell you a little bit about my story. You see, my grandparents were enslaved, but my parents were free African Americans who gave birth to me in September of 1766. My father had a sailmaking shop where I helped him as a boy and learned to make sails. When I was 7, my father passed away. I attended a Quaker school at the time, but my family needed money badly, so I took a job at a shop. At this time, Britain ruled the colonies, but us colonists wanted freedom. In 1766, I decided to do my part to help America win freedom. On October 8, 1781, I went on an American ship called the Royal Louis, and my job was to help load the gunpowder. Eventually, my ship surrendered to the British, sailing on a ship called the Amphion, and we were taken as prisoners. Even though I was scared, I felt brave because I had my lucky marble in my pocket. A day after I was on the Amphion, the British moved 30 people to a different ship. If I ever needed luck, it would be now. I grabbed my lucky blue marble and held it close. Before the captain decided who would be transferred to a different ship, the captain's son, Henry, approached me and asked if I had more marbles. We ended up playing, and I won the game with ease. Henry and I became close friends and explored the ship together. A few years went by, and Henry's dad said I could be a soldier and fight for Britain. I refused. I've worked so hard for my country already, and there was no way I would give up now. Soon I ended up on a ship called the Jersey, and my first thought was, it smells of death. On this ship, I spent my free time helping the sick prisoners, including a man named Daniel. One day, I heard an American officer on my boat would be traded for a British officer. This was my opportunity to sneak off the ship in the officer's chest. However, in the end, I decided that Daniel should leave the ship instead, since he was close to death. I knew I would find another way to gain my freedom. Lucky enough, I was soon released and walked all the way from New York to Philadelphia as a free man. I went to see my mom, and I was overwhelmed with joy. I returned to the sailmaking shop my father worked for, became the owner, and hired 40 men of all backgrounds. During this time, I made a device to handle ship sails, which helped me become a very wealthy businessman. I helped the outcome of our country by taking care of those who could not take care of themselves. Long live America.
To ally with King George III or not to ally with King George III? That is the question. Sorry, I was practicing my Shakespeare. Let me introduce myself. Joseph Brant here. I'm the military leader for the Mohawk Nation and had many successful accomplishments. I fought to protect the land for all Native American nations as the Europeans came to settle on our land, just as they did when I was growing up. Let me tell you my story. The British had taken control of most of America and all the colonies. Thankfully, the British didn't get anywhere near the Mohawk Nation or any Native American territory. But the colonists tried to take over my land. My dear friend Sir William Johnson was an Englishman who tried to create peace between native people and settlers. He was loyal as he taught me to fight during wars and battles, which helped me to lead the Mohawk people during the French and Indian War. It's a pity that we lost the war, but we got some land for our people. I proved I could be dependable for the Mohawk people by raiding villages and towns of colonists. My most memorable raid was at Cherry Valley on November 11th, 1778. After this raid, I became known as a feared military leader. Although I was on King George III's side, don't think of me as a loyalist. I wanted the colonists to stay off Mohawk territory, and Britain offered to help. King George and I both fought to keep the colonists off and away from our land, but when the war ended and Britain lost, we were almost left with nothing. We lost our villages and our allies in North America, plus we were in danger of completely losing our lands. The Mohawk people were depending on me to keep them safe and preserve our culture. Over the next few years, we signed many treaties with the United States government to give up our land in exchange for equal rights. This was a false promise, and we were pushed out of our land. Luckily, since we stayed loyal with Britain, they gave us more than 600,000 acres of land, which they still claim theirs, which is in present-day Ontario. We moved there and are living a peaceful life. Although we did not have positive exchanges with Americans, I still encouraged other natives to work hard with Americans and sign treaties with them. I'm not a patriot or a loyalist, but I'm thankful to King George III for helping the Mohawk people. Again, my name is Chief Indonesia, also known as Joseph Brant, the powerful Mohawk chief. Throughout my life, I've watched many European strangers settle on American land, which is often Native American land. My mission as a chief was to protect my land and keep my people safe. With determination and hard work, anything is possible.
Oh, hello. I was just admiring the jewels in my crown. The diamonds are superb and more extravagant than Tiffany & Co. Oh, let me introduce myself. My name is King George III of England. No applause needed. For those who don't know me, I am the king who ruled Britain and the 13 colonies until the end of the Revolutionary War when America gained their independence. The patriots viewed me as a tyrant, but I did not view myself this way, and the loyalists would tell you the same. Here is a famous quote of mine describing my leadership. I wish nothing but good. Therefore, everyone who does not agree with me is a traitor and a scoundrel. This is important to me because there has to be good in the world, one more good than hate. Along with being king in charge of the British Army during the Revolutionary War, I am also a husband and a father to 15 children. I definitely have my hands full. I love England as much as I love my own family. Today, I am here to talk about the British surrendering to America. The Revolutionary War started in April of 1775 with the shot heard around the world at the Battle of Lexington and Concord. We were at war for many years, and I was committed to keeping America under British reign. In September 1781, General Washington planned and led a surprise attack on my tired men in Yorktown, Virginia. This was the Battle of Yorktown, where my men fought bravely against the Patriots for 10 days. I could never give up on America, and I was determined to win. Eventually, British General Cornwallis surrendered to General George Washington and the Patriots. When the Redcoats surrendered, I was furious. I thought I could win them back. I had a brilliant plan, despite the surrender, to harass the Patriots, but Parliament said it was too expensive and dangerous. William Pitt, the younger son of my former opponent, was a prime minister who said this war was cruel, barbarous, wicked, and diabolical. This was the truth, and this war ruined my whole reputation. In September 1783, the United States became their own country. I was invited to the signing of the peace treaty between Britain and France in September 1783, but I decided I didn't want to go. I thought it would be too embarrassing. During the war, 20,000 Redcoats died and 8,000 Hessians died. It's not my fault, though, since the Patriots started the war with the first shot at the Battle of Lexington and Concord. There will never be a king that felt so disappointed in an entire life except me. For all my life, I thought I would be a great king, but now I'll be remembered as a king who lost America. Farewell, America. I have to go put on my stage makeup for Hamilton to continue to tell my story. I know we got looking this well.